We're going to be looking at the calculations needed for the storm team for the E-mission. Before we begin, there's a couple of sheets of paper you need to have in front of you. One of them is going to be the information page, which talks about what each column represents. The next one is going to be a table for X-ray production. Look for that. And then very similar to looking is the table for proton production. And finally, your graphs. You should have 2 of them. Before we begin, take a look at the beginning piece right here. I want to point out in the instructions, it says since we are working with large numbers, we can go ahead and no need to use the decimals, and we can just round to the nearest whole number. That will be good to know as we do our calculations. Let's get started. On your table then, take a look at column A. This one seems pretty straightforward. It looks like it's just the universal time, and what we know is military time. So it starts at 1500, and they're giving us some data. So here we go. Column B then is, in fact, the real-time data. So in our practice sheet, you'll see these are all filled in. Down here in the mission sheet, those are blank. You're going to be getting that information throughout the mission. Rather than starting at the first example, let's go down to the second one. Since these are all going to be predictions, you can't make a prediction if you don't have a previous number. So let's start on the 16 then. So at 1520, we are given that it was 16, let's see, what do we have those in? Measured in microwatts of your X-rays. Next column, column C, I think, where is this coming from? What is this, R1, R2? Well, refer back to your sheet. Here we go, column C. This is the type of category it's going to fall into. And here it's pretty straightforward. We're working on the X-ray sheet right now. So I'm going to look at the X-ray. Make sure you see the difference between here. The X-ray category. Well, now I forgot the number. 16, which in fact is going to be an R1, a minor. That's why the R1 is circled here. And you'll see that 9, 16, 46, all of those fall under the 0 to 50, which is why the R1 is circled. All right, column D then, change. This is going to be the calculating the change in X-rays, or the protons, in this case X-rays, since the last reading. So here we go. The change then is going to be B minus the previous B. So in this case, let's just take a step back and use common sense. From 9 to 16, is that going up or going down? It's going up. It's going to be a positive number. And so 16 minus 9 gives us 7. If you look at this next one, 16 to 46, that's also going up. It's going to be a positive number. And 46 minus 16 is 30. So that's where these two numbers are coming from. All right, so let's take a look at E then. We're going to look at X-rays per minute. So we're going to take D and divide it by 20 minutes. So grab out your calculators and let's just check and see how they did this. I take D, 7, divided by 20 equals 0.35. There, they got this one. Let's do this next one. What is 30 divided by 20? 1.5. That's where this is coming from right here. Okay. Next up, we have this column up here. Oh, goodness, we have E times 60 minutes plus B. Those are referring to your column titles. Don't get too nervous about that. So here we go. We're going to now look at, let's see, for F, this one, I referred back to my sheet here to kind of see what they're looking for. We're going to be doing a projection, and here's the one column where it's going to be different. Before we go, they've even highlighted this right here, is that it says if our answer ends up being a negative number, to just use 0, because the sun cannot produce negative amounts of protons or X-rays. So keep that in mind as you start to go. So here we go. Let's work these two through us. Whoops. We're going to take E, so right here, right, E is 0.35. I'm going to times it by 60. I get 21 plus B, which is way back here, 16, and end up with 37. So now, based off of the predicted amount, they want you to recategorize based off of the same numbers that we did on Steve. So column G, although it doesn't say on here, is going to be the same thing for column C. So if you want to write NG on here, that might help you out as well. Okay, so in this case, 37 is still in the 0 to 50. It is a minor. In this case, I had, let's do 136, so 1.5 times 60, 90, plus B, which was 46. We get 136. Now that's higher than 0 to 50, so I would have to look. 136 is in between 50 and 100, so that's going to be a 2, R2. Okay, we'll do one together. Now, I want to point out this D, this change right here. All right, so take a look at my numbers. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so we can expect to see positive changes as we go. However, what happened right here, 1250 down to 90, that was a drop. So therefore, it is represented with a negative number. So keep that in mind. You can have some negative numbers. Here we go. Let's try this out. First off, 452. That is going to be category. Well, where is that in between? 452 is going to be R3. R3. Okay, next up. Yep, did that. Is the amount of change. So I'm going to do B minus the previous B. In this case, again, use common sense. 90 to 452. Is that going up or going down? It's going up. So I will have a positive number. Let's do 452 minus 90 equals 362. Okay. I'm going to take this number, it says here, and divide it by 20. 362 divided by 20 is 18.1. It did say no decimals, but that's all right. These are just small numbers at this point. Okay, finally, the projected, I'm going to take the column E, 18.1, I already have it on my calculator, times it by 60, times 60, equals 1,086. I'm going to add B to it, which is way back here, plus 452. And I get 1,538 right here. And then I'm supposed to repredict. So I pull back over here. 1,532. So that's over here. It looks like it's going to be R4. We're in the severe range at this point right here. Oops, and this one they didn't actually do. You could go through if it's a 0. Well, that's going to be our lowest, which is the minor. All right. Now, one thing I do want to point out, both the X-ray production and the proton production are done very similarly. Keep in mind, you can have some negative numbers as you start to go. The only difference here is this projected one for part F is that instead of 60, it uses 1440. So keep that in mind when you're doing your calculations. That's going to be a slightly different number. But otherwise, the same process applies. Lastly, you'll see we need to graph this column. So, column B. Hardest part about this is just making sure, remember we did X-ray. So I'm going to do X-ray production. And then graphing column B. Okay, so here we go. At 1500, column B was at 9. Woo! Those are pretty low. Pretty close to 0 here. Then it goes at 1520 is at 16. Woo! A little bit higher. At 1540 is at 46. Going up slightly. At 1600 is 1250. Whoa, that was a huge jump. 1600, 1250. So somewhere just right above the 12 line. And then we have 90. Jumps back down at 1620 at 90. Now, you have the rest of the numbers that you can graph on here. Since this is over time, it's going to be a line graph, and you can go ahead and connect your points. Your task then is to complete the rest of the graphs and fill out the rest of the table. Remember, utilizing this sheet on the front here for any questions you may have about the columns.